Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday, April 22nd. We're happy to have you here, those watching right now and those on YouTube. Today, we're having our informational interview with Passion Impact. I'm Kayla Fu.
And I'm Stefan Pearls.
All right. So this is the overview of how the whole interview is going to go today. We're starting right now at 4:05, and at 4:10, we'll be starting our interview with the professionals, and alongside, you can always ask questions if you have one. Just raise your hand and we'll answer you, I guess. And at 4:55, we'll wrap up and students will write a reflection on what they learned. And at 5 o'clock, we'll end the call.
Awesome.
Boom, boom, boom. All right, so here are some of our sponsors. And if you could just spread the word and try to help them out since of like the whole corona thing going on. And yeah.
In terms of meeting expectations, we show gratitude and respect for everybody on this chat. It doesn't matter who it is, it's all of us. So you're muted right now. You'll be able to be unmuted when you raise your hand. Let's bring Yahaira back in here. All right, so she should be coming back. The best way to raise your hand is by clicking this participant button at the bottom. Hey, she's back. Welcome back. And then the raise your hand button. So just to make sure, I want to make sure that everybody knows how to raise your hand. What we'll be asking of you is to introduce yourself and your pronoun when you raise your hand. It's okay if you don't want to have your video on, but we'd like to hear from you. So practice raising your hand right now. Awesome. We got Mary. We got Brittany. Danny, you know how to do it. Kayla. Uh-oh. That face looks confused, Danny. Do you know how to do it?
She can't do it because she's a co-host.
Oh, dang it. Thank you. Good point. Gotcha. Brian knows how to do it. Yahaira, do you know how to do it? Just for fun.
What am I doing again? I'm sorry.
Raising your hand. You won't need to know how to do it unless you really want to. It's fine.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So real quick, no nudity, vulgar or demeaning language or inappropriate sharing of your screen will be tolerated. We do reserve the rights to kick anybody out, to remove anybody from this program. So I or my co-host, Danny the Warden, have the power to do such a thing. We don't ever want to use that. So let's just have fun and stay engaged. Without further ado, let's gonna introduce our guests. So we got Yahaira De Lara. She's currently a legal intern at Cintra US, focusing on commercial and business transactions, cum laude graduate of St. Mary's University School of Law, and worked for the financial institution and was a judicial intern for the Fourth Court of Appeals. Some of these terms I am still unfamiliar with, so I'm excited to learn them alongside you. Completed her undergraduate education. This is my editing, so this is why it's bad. At the University of Texas, Austin. If you don't know their hand sign, it is this. So if you say hokum, this is what it is. I happen to like them a little bit. Brian will be looking for yours in a little bit. Double majored in government and international relations and global studies, and minored in Spanish and European studies, fluent in Spanish. So maybe some of her answers could be in Spanish. I know at least one person on this call speaks fluent Spanish.
It's really good. All right, so Brian Falgiano, if I said it right, I don't know if I said it right, but all right. He is currently a law clerk at Price Benowitz, LLP in Washington, D.C. Brian is a graduate of the University of Baltimore, studying jurisprudence in his undergraduate studies. Yeah, I am not good at big words, so I will try my best, but all right, so he graduated, okay, and is entering a law school a year early. While in law school, Brian entered a public defender's office, Felony Trial Division, with a criminal judge with a separate office with a public defender, all in Baltimore. And upon graduation, he clerked for a judge in Annapolis, call this? MD, learning skills essentially to becoming successful in the legal field. Yeah, that was hard. That was hard. Woo! Yeah, I don't think the lawyer thing is for me, but okay. All right, thank you, y'all. I understand that you guys have 2 different jobs, and it's like hard too to understand because I don't really know things about like the law and like lawyer stuff, but I've seen movies. But can you briefly explain what it is that you do? Let's go with Yahaira first.
Sure. So a little bit about what I do. Like you said, the legal field is kind of complicated. There's a lot of different things that you can do after law school. And my route's not necessarily the most typical. So I actually work for a subsidiary of a Spanish company. So my company is their name is Ferrovial. They have a lot of different infrastructure projects around the world. And I work for their tollway division named Cintra here in Austin, Texas. And they basically do a 1-year program where you have to be an intern. And so I'm the youngest on the legal team. There's a group of 6 of us. And what we do is work in-house. Basically, when you work for a company instead of a law firm on their legal team inside the company, they're called in-house. So I'm on their in-house team, and my official position's a legal intern. But I did pass the Texas bar exam, which is what you're supposed to do after law school. You have to sit for a bar exam depending on what state you choose to practice. And once you pass that, you're a licensed attorney. So a little bit of what I do on a day-to-day is basically anything that the company needs. I do a lot of contracts. Most people won't think that that's the fun part, but I really enjoy it. I enjoy, deals. I like words and figuring that out. And the cool thing about working for a company is that I get to sit with everybody, whether it's business, public relations, HR. I can do a contract for human resources, whatever it may be. So it's good that I get to have at least a basic understanding of different areas of law. Do you have any add-on questions?
That's like basically really straight on. It sounds what I can like see it. Yeah.
You understand a little bit of
Yeah,
it?
just a little. I mean, it's not like big words aren't really my thing, but I guess I'll learn today, I guess. But
Well, feel free to ask any clarifying questions if there's anything y'all didn't understand, because it's kind of complicated.
yeah, it must be. Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah. What about you, Brian?
So I work at a law firm in DC called Price Benowitz, and I'm a law clerk with them. I'm primary legal support with the criminal team. So I help lawyers, go through a bunch of discovery. So if they have a client that comes in that's charged with, say murder, we'll get a bunch of discovery, which is just evidence, proposed evidence from the state or from the government. And I'll help them sort through that, try and find good pieces, try and find bad pieces, and talk with the clients about their story and their side of things, and try and figure out the best way to represent our client. And I'll also then, based off of the discovery, write motions, pretrial motions to try and help our chances in court, help our chances for our client to be acquitted of the charges, let off of the charges. And if need be, if it actually goes to trial, I'll be with the lawyers themselves and go to trial with them and help them inside the courtroom, making sure that everything stays organized, and that they have the information right in front of them when they need it.
Wow. So basically, it's like what people like would think about when they say, "Oh, I'm a lawyer," kind of thing. Like you basically do what people say. So like Law and Order. Have you seen that?
Yeah,
yeah.
It's
like
a little more. It's a little more traditional than Yahaira's. Am I pronouncing that right?
Mm-hmm.
Than Yahaira's route.
Oh man, I was like, every time I think of a lawyer, it's just like a person who like helps defend someone defend someone. Like not like Yahaira, where she works with everyone else. I never thought of it that way. But here's a question: how did you guys like come to find your current work right now? And let's start
This
with,
specific one.
yeah.
So this specific one, I actually had when I was in law school, I was on the trial team, and my trial team coach works at this law firm. So when I graduated and I did a judicial clerkship with a judge in Annapolis. But after that, then I was, looking for jobs, and I saw that he was working there, and I messaged him and I was like, hey, could you give me a good reference? And I got into that law firm.
Wow, that sounds great. Yeah.
Can
References.
I also bring up for like between the last interview and this interview, seems like that networking is still super necessary. I'd be curious if Yahaira's had the same experience in that too.
I think networking is the most important thing you can do with any career, whether you're in the legal field like ourselves or any other business that the students might decide to go into. I guess my networking kind of going into it, I think the best thing that if y'all have is a LinkedIn. I don't know if in high school I never had one. It wasn't big back in the day, but I would definitely encourage all the students to get a LinkedIn. That's where I found my job, but it wasn't through my mutual connections, which is more Brian's route, the networking, but it was just looking up jobs that I found would be interesting. I studied abroad in Madrid, so anything that connects me back to Spain, I really enjoyed. And being able to do transactions in Spanish really appealed to me, just part of my work.
If I could just add on real quick, as part of networking, but not specifically networking, just getting experience, as soon as you can, that definitely helps when you're getting out of school. Any sort of internship or, just a 2-week volunteership or whatever that you can do will definitely help later down the road.
Oh, that sounds great. So I don't know, it's really like all this is just going into my head right now because I never really like thought about like the lower side of things. Like I've never really looked into it because I don't know, like it seems like this whole thing, like being a lawyer, it's like the whole trying to compete for like a case or like a job, because I've heard that the lawyer, like the law kind of side of career, it's like very competitive. So is it that stressful if you think about it? Because I don't know, it seems stressful trying to get like a job in the law side of careers. How about we start with Brian?
It is. I mean, my experience has been stressful to get a job, and then when you're actually doing the work, it's not as stressful in the moment. It's more stressful over time, because in the moment you're enjoying whatever you're doing, or hopefully enjoying whatever you're doing. But over time, yeah, it does become stressful. Just as an example, so one of the cases that I worked on last year, it was an individual who was charged with committing fraud, over $2 million of fraud. She had this scheme that she was planning, where she would say, hey, if you invest with me, then I can find a really good return on your money. And there were about 11 investors that went through this for a total of about $2 million. So she went to trial, and her trial was a 3-week-long trial. And one of those days, I think I worked 16 hours that day. And I ended up going down to a local hotel just to spend the night there, and then wake up again at 6 a.m. and get ready for the next day of trial. So there are definitely times where it is very stressful.
So the question was whether our current position is stressful or just the legal field in general.
In general, or yeah, whatever, like both of them, just in general, basically, yeah.
Well, I guess to differ between Brian and my current position, they're very different. I think any law firm, especially one when you're defending people's liberty, is a lot more stressful. Working in-house is considered the most relaxed version of the legal field. The most stressful thing we do is we do public procurement. So any contracts with different governments, different states. So they're very specific on the regulations you need to follow, and anything that you do incorrectly can get you outside of a multi-billion-dollar bid. So if any of our business development team is meeting with governors or any state reps, that we need to make sure that whatever communications they have are legal in the procurement route. So recently, one of our people were at a state that I can't disclose that we're looking to build a large infrastructure piece of land there. So he needed a question answered in that instance. So we had to scour and get that. But again, it's all in the business, and it's a matter of money as opposed to people's lives. So I don't think the stress compares. Something that I do think that Brian has also talked on, just getting a job, I think whether you go into the legal field or anything, is really stressful. And I think that right now, I don't know if any of y'all are seniors, y'all might be extra stressed right now with the corona. Not to be a downer on this interview, people don't really know what's going to happen, and that's affecting a lot of legal jobs. A lot of law firms have cut their salaries. So it's interesting to see how everything's kind of connected.
Yeah,
Can I piggyback off of that question, Kayla?
which one was
Can
it?
I piggyback off of the stress question?
Oh, yeah.
So
Go ahead.
a few of my friends who are lawyers have talked about definitely the stresses on the job and how pervasive it can be depending upon what area of law you're in. But the stresses of law school, and maybe this is where you're going to go with it, Kayla, what is that like? Because I've also heard that is crazy. Let's start with Yahaira.
Okay, sure. So I don't know how familiar y'all are with law school and how the system works. Well, I would say the general system, because different law schools have implemented different things. Brian, feel free to chime in whenever you want. But I think personally, the most competitive thing or stressful thing about law school is that most of the grading's based on a curve. So you're being directly affected by what your fellow classmates are doing. So it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world. You're competing every day. And at my school, personally, our first semester, they cut the bottom 20%. So if you aren't ranked well on your curve, then you can get out and just lose whatever your tuition was for that semester. So, and again, a lot of my things, I guess my comments, I should specify that they're kind of stereotypes. Some schools may not be the same. Some markets may not be the same. But the general understanding is that people really care about your class rank and where you end up. And that's all based on the 3 years that you're competing against your fellow classmates. So another thing that I should note is that for us, at least, we only have one exam that makes up our whole grade. So we have one exam at the end of a semester, and you have whatever your 5 or 10 classes, depending on how your school does it. So if you're taking crim law course, you're going to have one grade. That's also based on a curve. So the whole time you're keeping up with your outlines, which is this thing where you put all your notes of every class. And basically you always have to be studying without really having a day. And I think something I haven't mentioned is the classroom atmosphere and the Socratic seminar, but I don't know if Brian wants to talk about that. I don't want to steal all the stresses of law school. Do you want to continue?
Yeah, sure. You can take all the stress away. Don't worry about that. So yeah, the curve is definitely something to not be feared, but be very cognizant of. There will be people that will study that you will never see, that you will never ever see because they have no social life and they just sit in their room and study, and that's all they do. And they get the 4.0s, and you're like, who are you? Who is this valedictorian? I've never seen you. But you get through it. You got to keep up with it, like Yahaira was saying about the outlines, just making sure that you're rehashing things that you've gone over through the semester, because at the end of the semester, you've got 3 months worth of material that's going to be on one test, and it's a 4-hour long test that you're going to have to just work through and answer correctly. One thing that I found particularly about my school that took the stress off of things was they had a really strong internship placement program. So if you are a 1L, what they call first year law student 1L, you can basically just go to them and say, hey, I'd like an internship. And they partnered with a bunch of lawyers, judges from around the state. And if you go to them and say, I want an internship, they'll say, okay, well, here, this is, we got this person. It's kind of in the field that you wanted to do, or it is exactly in the field that you wanted to do. So that did take the stress off of things. And, the other stress as well is money, just as a very pragmatic stressor. Law school is expensive, and you may not be able to pay for it all up front. If you wanted to work through law school, you might not get the experience that you might need, because a lot of the legal internships are not paid. So you might not get the experience on the ground that you would need later down the road. But yeah, that's also a big stressor.
That sounds like, I don't know, like just the whole like hearing lawyer, like I know like it's just so much, like I don't know, maybe because it's all from the movies I watched, but I don't know, like just seeing a lawyer, I'm like, oh my god, they're so smart, and like, oh my god, I shouldn't talk to them. I feel intimidated. But like as a student, like coming in like a senior, like it's a big stress trying to find out which college you want to go to. So if you did go, yeah, I mean, of course you went to law school, but if you did, how did you like figure out which school you wanted to go to, like which college you wanted to go to, and why? Let's start with Yahaira.
Okay. Before I answer your question, Kayla, could we address Adriana's question? Or better said, Brian address it, because he's the one with court experience.
Oh, wait. Oh.
Adriana's question is, how accurate are TV shows that show law school or lawyers that do go to court looking at how to get away with murder or something like Law and Order?
So yeah, I'll go ahead and take that. So it's actually Law and Order is one of the less accurate ones, surprisingly. My favorite movies that are pretty accurate are actually My Cousin Vinny, Legally Blonde, and 12 Angry Men. Those are actually
Legally Blonde.
Yeah, I'm not lying. Legally Blonde is actually pretty accurate.
Wow,
as to how courtroom procedure works. Because the issue with a lot of the shows is that they just talk whenever they want, and they are just bringing up pieces of evidence and throwing it in front of the jury, and they're making a lot of conjecture, and there's a lot of procedural mishaps that happen on a lot of shows. But some movies and some shows do get it right, and those are the three that come to mind right off the top.
Wow.
That's so funny. Legally Blonde. Oh my god, I literally watched that like 5 times, but it's okay. Okay, so since we were talking about like cases and stuff, like all the like, now I'm just thinking of Legally Blonde. When you take up onto a case, like usually do you just like, what if you don't think that it's right? Do you just like, how do you deal with emotions when dealing with a case? Basically, that's my question. We start with Brian.
So I got asked this question a lot, especially since I was interested in going into the criminal field. I got asked by my family and my friends, just like, why are you going into the criminal field? How could you represent a murderer or a rapist or anything along those lines? And my answer was, everybody has their rights, and what I view my job is to not necessarily represent that individual in their individual capacity, but as their role in the courtroom. Because everybody is a human in the courtroom. We're all human beings, and we all deserve an amount of respect because we're human beings, no matter what your circumstances are. So even the defendant in the room who may have heinous charges against them, they deserve that same amount of respect, which includes all procedural rights that they have and all substantive rights that they have. And I've found that I can come to terms with that. I don't really. I mean, obviously, you come across things that do affect you, but at the end of the day, that person has rights.
I see. So it's like a non-biased but respectable, non-biased way of just not judging, I guess. I see. Okay. I know that Yahaira has like a different kind of like job. So here's a question from Mary, I guess. Who is your typical client?
So working in-house for a company, my client is the company. Everything we do is for the company's best interest. So it's definitely not we don't get changes. The only thing different with my company is that since there's one parent companies, we have a lot of subsidiaries. So the best interest of one company might not be the best interest of another. So it's balancing to see overall what's going to get the parent company the best deal. It's a confusing little maneuver, I guess, but.
Would you say that it's competitive at times?
Competitive being the companies against each other?
The subsidiary companies. Is there any competition between y'all?
Yeah, I think there is, but everyone has different things that they focus on. Like we have like an airports division. For example, one of our concessions is like the Heathrow Airport in London. So that by itself, whatever money it brings in, they're like the competitive in the sense that they're different markets, so they don't compete that much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
The division I work for is just toll roads. So we wouldn't compete against a different division that does a different thing.
Oh, you just compete against other companies in that same atmosphere. Okay, cool.
Exactly, yeah. Other people that would be bidding on the same projects as us.
Can we jump back to an earlier question? I think we got really excited about Legally Blonde, which is totally expected when we talk about
So
Legally
good.
Blonde. I think it's really important we jump back to this one is how did you choose your college? Kayla, you asked that question. So
Oh yeah, I did.
would love to hear your answer, Yahaira.
So when you say college, are y'all asking about our undergrad or our law school?
Yeah, I think just start with undergrad, right? Like did you know that you wanted to be a lawyer to begin with, and how did you kind of plan that maybe?
Yeah, it's kind of, sorry, Brian, do you mind if I start? I don't think so. At least for what I recall, I didn't want to be a lawyer right out of high school. I was kind of focused on being some like international political, like an ambassador or consul. That was what I wanted to be. I really enjoyed it. So I kind of based what I want to do. Initially, I actually didn't go to University of Texas. I went to New York University because I wanted to be close to the United Nations. So when I was 18, that was my dream job. I was like, I really want to do that. But unfortunately, I went to New York in 2012, which is when Hurricane Sandy happened. I don't know, y'all are probably too young to remember that. So after my 1 year in New York, I was like, oh, I need to go back to South. I need to go back to Texas, to the warmth. So I went back to Austin, which is where I grew up, and finished at the University of Texas. And I ended up double majoring in government and still doing that international relations. And it was during undergrad that I interned at the governor's office, and basically with my degree of government, but I realized that I really like the business side of it. So I was working for the economic development team for the governor of Texas, and there was a lot of regulatory stuff that we needed to basically be on top of in order to do business. So that's kind of when I decided I wanted to go to law school, because I was like, oh, I really enjoy this.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to be somewhere close to home, and St. Mary's was close to Austin, but not in Austin.
That's in San Antonio, right?
Yes. So it's
Okay.
about an hour and a half drive for people that don't know.
And Brian, how about you? How did you find your access point and how you wanted to?
When I was in
Where
high
you-
school as a junior, we had a job shadow day, and I just had by chance randomly picked somebody off of a list who volunteered to host the job shadowing day, and she was a prosecutor for the state in Maryland. So I shadowed her for the day, and she went into court and she did this hearing. And she asked me to, write something up that she didn't actually use, but she was like, hey, I would want to see what you would say in this situation. Like, you've listened in all day on court. What would you say here? So I wrote up like a page or whatever for her, and I had a good time that day. So when I was a senior in high school, I took my senior project to kind of revolve around the law and the flaws of the American judiciary is what I called it. But I wasn't super passionate about law. It was an idea, and it just kind of grew. So when you're a senior in high school, or they at least told me, they're like, hey, you're going to, when you get to college, you're going to change your major 7 times on average. You're not going to land what you actually want to do until later down the road. So don't worry about it. Your first 2 years, just do well in classes, but don't worry about focusing on anything. So I went into college and I was like, okay, well, here, let me just pick Jurisprudence, which is the philosophy of law. And they had an early entry option for jurisprudence as well into University of Baltimore's law school. And specifically for that university, I wanted to go somewhere close enough to home, but still far enough away to where I could justify actually moving up there and away from home. And then not go to the school that my brother and sister both went to. So those were my only real criteria. And University of Baltimore accepted me and gave me a full scholarship. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just go here.
Wow.
And so I did my undergrad there, and yeah, I kept enjoying the classes tailored towards law. One of my favorite, this one wasn't specifically for law, but one of my favorite classes was the logic of language, which is, it teaches you how to formulate, how to use words as a weapon, I guess, to really have an effect on people, and how to use language effectively. So then I graduated and went to law school, and again, it was just more and more things that I enjoyed, but I never got super passionate about. And I ended up finding myself in law school and where I am today.
That's awesome.
Oh, so basically, you guys, like, what I'm hearing is, like, basically, you guys chose a college that, based on distance, at the same time, like, just how you both didn't really think that you'll get to this job, this current, like, career right now. So that's, like, really weird, because, like, some people go into, like, college, like, oh, I'm gonna be a doctor someday, and they do end up being a doctor, but, like, it's crazy how I hear, like, stories of how people just become going from a doctor to, like, a engineer, or engineer to, like, a lawyer. It's just, like, jumping pathways. Like, was it hard to transition from one, like, career-based thing that you were interested to another? And with Brian, like, not liking law, like, stuff in the first place, is it more of, like, a way that you adapted to it? Wait, no, I'm just asking, like, a bunch of different questions. So I don't know, I just have so many questions just coming out right now, and it's like, I don't know. Let's start with one, though. Did you guys do anything, like, any, like, activities on campus, like mock trial, or, like, what was it? Mock trial. There's another thing I was thinking of. but any activities on campus while during college or anything? I start with Yahaira.
I unfortunately wasn't too involved on activities in college. I did various internships, so I guess my internships were the ones that led me to want to pursue law. That's just what I decided to do, but I think it's great for kids to be involved on campus. I don't know what Brian did at his school.
Undergrad, I just did intramural sports like ping pong and badminton and pool billiards. But in law school, I did mock trial team. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And that's, as I mentioned before, that my coach was my reference for my current job.
Yeah, so while in college, were you guys working since law school is expensive, so you might as have try to pay off some of the debt or just try to support yourself? If so, what's a good thing that you should put on your resume and why? And let's start with Ryan this time.
So the summers are important in law school, and you really got to focus on your studies when you're in law school. Some people do nighttime school, so they'll actually do 4 years of law school rather than 3 years of law school, and then work during the day and go to class at night. That wasn't really what I wanted to do, just because I wanted to be done with school, get through it, and just start working. But the summers are really important. In terms of finding how to pay for law school, use every advantage that you have. Any sort of scholarship that you can grab onto, any sort of tax benefit that you can take advantage of. A lot of people don't realize that you can get reimbursed for some of your law school tuition through taxes. But yeah, just taking advantage outside of straight up working and paying for law school. It's nice if you get a legal job, a legal internship that pays, but taking advantage of other opportunities is definitely essential.
Yeah, do you know if you don't didn't get a job during college because of studying and all that, what's based on just experience and knowledge, what do you think it would be a good thing to put on your resume? That's the main question right there, because high school students are looking for summer jobs this summer, so just thinking of that. Yeah, but yeah, Haida, you can go now.
Okay, I'll answer that question. I think it's important to put on your resume, especially if you said you don't have any work experience. I think any commitment that you've made. So for example, y'all are part of this great organization. If y'all do a lot of volunteering, I think it's great to show, hey, I've been part of this team member for this long time. I participate in these game activities. I help my community. I volunteer. Anything that shows that the type of student that a university would want to accept. They want someone that's driven, goal-oriented, that's going to make them eventually look good. They want their student base to be people that they're proud of. And I think that anything that you do towards that doesn't have to be a job. A job teaches you maybe that experience in that field, but being part of a volunteer organization teaches you so much more. Right now you're leading this interview. You have leadership skills, you have oral skills, you're a great speaker. That's, if you decide you want to go to law school, that's a lot of what law school is, talking, convincing people. But I think it's important to distinguish also that law school, you have to finish your undergrad degree. So you say a lot about college. During college, I worked all of college. One of the jobs that I did was be a legal assistant. So that's some exposure that I had into law school. I worked for a family law firm doing stuff that I would never want to do now, but I learned a lot about the legal field and what that entails, and I got paid to do it. I probably got paid more as a undergrad when I was just going to school than as a first-year law student. So I think that's even something y'all can do right now in the summers. There's attorneys that will hire you to file papers. You can drive people's cars, go take mail for them for different attorneys. I would check Craigslist or anything around y'all if y'all are interested. or maybe just shadowing, like Brian stayed in high school. Y'all could probably go shadow an attorney if y'all are interested.
So that's actually one of the questions. Brittany actually had to leave, so she sent me a few questions, and she was like, where do I even start? Like, what do I even want to do? Especially, she wants to become an immigration lawyer. Should she just walk into an immigration law firm and just say, like, I want to become an immigration lawyer one day? What should I do? Like, how does she start?
You want to take?
Yeah, I'll take that. So I guess one way she could start is by sending me an email, and I could get her in touch with our firm has an immigration department as well, and the head of our immigration department, Natalia, is very, very good at what she does. But yeah, it's essentially just going in there and saying, hey, I want to go into immigration. Can I just hang out one day, or can I get some information on the next time you're in court? Because court's public, so you can walk into court and see any sort of proceeding that's going on. That would be the best place to start. There's also just looking up events, going to the local bar association's website and just looking up different events that are happening. That's a good place to start as well, because those are usually public.
And I just want to specify here, the local bar association is not the pub down the street.
Is not the pub down the street. No, is the legal bar association. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
No, you do not have to be 21 in order to enter. But yeah, essentially, yeah, just getting your foot out there anywhere you can and meeting people.
Cool. Awesome. I got a question. Kayla, is it okay if I ask another question? Okay, cool. This one's directed to Yahaira, and Brian, if you have any knowledge on this too, definitely please chime in. Yahaira, as a woman of color, jumping into a field that may not be anything like you, like there may be a majority of white men or potentially white women around you. What is that like, and what are some of the struggles that you've seen, and how you've had to overcome those?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think where I work right now is kind of the abnormal situation, but in typical law firms in the U.S. or what I've seen in Texas, I'm not sure. Obviously, it varies by city. They're mostly white males. So what I found, I've been in various situations where, for example, if I'm with a friend that happens to fit that demographic, if he's a white male, some people, like a client, might look at them first instead of looking at me. Or when they're speaking, they might address them, assuming that he's the attorney instead of myself. So I've definitely been in that situation. But I think things are getting better. And there's a lot of different organizations. There's a lot of women law organization. There's minority council organizations of different bar associations, different groups that you can be a part of. And I guess you're stronger in numbers. But I think if you don't focus on that so much for yourself, then just don't look at it, don't think about it. Like most people nowadays, they don't see a woman attorney, they don't see a Mexican attorney, they just see an attorney. I think things are changing, they're getting better. If you yourself sometimes feel like an other, I think unfortunately there's not much that we can do except just like remind yourself that you're equally you're equal as them. But I actually wanted to go back to the immigration questions that you answered, asked earlier. I think another great thing that she could do, there's a lot of nonprofits, that legal organizations. I don't know what they are in Portland, but like in Texas, we have like Raíces, which is a great nonprofit for immigration stuff. So I'm sure they could take volunteers in the summer. You can go help for your student. She should definitely look into that.
Can you repeat that name just and spell it potentially?
RAICES. And I can send you an email with more different information. Cool. Like Catholic Charities does a lot in Texas. I don't know. There's various different organizations that do like pro bono immigration stuff. They might even, I don't know if you'll have any detention centers. They might allow her to go and see that firsthand.
Absolutely. There's one not too far. It's about an hour and a half away from here. And that has been a huge center of protests over the past year and a half to 2 years. So Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure if she looks up like pro bono legal organizations that go there, she might be able to have the experience to go there and meet someone that's actually detained. Because I think it's
Cool.
it'd be a good experience. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those would be the people that you would be working with. So to see them up front firsthand, that'd be great. Brian, I want to send it over to you. If there's anything that you've seen in terms of potentially making sure that the space is acceptable and welcoming of all populations, are there any thoughts on your end on that?
So, I mean, from what I've seen, it mostly just depends on the client, really, because there are definitely, to touch on immigration again, a lot of immigration clients will say, you know, I do not want a white male. I'm not going to have a white male represent me. I want somebody who knows what I've been through, because I will be the first to admit that I have no idea. I have not lived that. I, can only read about it and get other people's experiences. So, and in the criminal field as well, African Americans will want, in general, African American representation as well, for some of the same reasons. But yeah, I mean, it's true that the legal field is dominated by white men, and at least in the newer generations, I don't really see any sort of like pride of that. But it's still the case for sure.
Okay. So let's say you have the microphone and you're standing center field, Super Bowl, and they ask you, why should any of these students who are on this call and who are listening on YouTube, why should they become a lawyer? And you've got a quick, hot second. I mean, like, think about Super Bowl ads are 30 seconds. They're powerful. Let's use those words of logic you talk about. Give us your 30-second elevator pitch as to why these students should really consider becoming a lawyer. And we'll pass it off. Brian, why don't you start, and you'll go next.
You should become a lawyer because it makes you a better person. It helps you think through things logically. It helps you communicate more effectively. It helps you become more self-confident. And it's fun. There's a lot of different areas of law, and you're bound to find something that you're interested in.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. You've done a great job here at center field. We're going to pass off the microphone to Yahaira now. Yahaira, same question to you.
I think you should become a lawyer if you want to feel like you accomplished something. I think if it's always been your goal to reach something, and once you finally get it, and I think that's a great sense of fulfillment. And kind of what Brian said, every day is a challenge. Like, you make it through, whether it's your client that you're getting out of jail, whether it's this big deal that you just closed, every day you get that sense of accomplishment, goal. Like, you feel good, not just because you did it, but also because you helped someone else get there. So if you want to, despite the negative things of being an attorney, if you want to feel like you made a change and impact, then I think you should become a lawyer.
Thank you very much, Yahaira.
That was great. That was great. I was like, it was like I was watching a mini ad. All right. But, just hearing how you guys talk about your jobs, and like, here's like one last question. What makes you so passionate about the work that you do? Let's start with Brian up top.
Guys, give me less time to think. What makes me passionate about my job? I mean, yeah, Yahaira's correct. You do get a sense of accomplishment, and it's consistently changing. So you're not going to be bored. You might get something that comes across your desk that you'll be bored with for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or even 2 months, but rest assured, something new will come across your desk, and you will not be bored with the next thing that comes along. Yeah.
Nice.
I get the same question.
Yep.
I'm passionate about my job. I think for me, it's all about learning. Law school teaches you how to read a case, how to analyze, how to bring in things to support your argument. But every day you have to find those resources again. You have to find the statute that supports the point that you're trying to make. So I think the fact that you can be pushed every day to be a better attorney, a better, I don't know. I think it's just learning. You're continuously learning. You can't just stay in the status quo. The law is changing. The Supreme Court had oral arguments today. Nothing's going to stay the same. Every day is different on Zoom.
And Brian's hand's raised. He wants to add another point.
Yeah, so just to piggyback off that, there's a reason why they call it the practice of law, is because you're never done with it. You've never obtained law. You're always striving towards being a better lawyer. You're not actually going to ever be there.
That sounds crazy. That sounds crazy just in the sense that like you really will always be working. You have the potential. I have so many more questions, but we don't have time. That's the unfortunate part. We're going to switch over here. I'm going to share my screen. For those students who are on the call, please make sure just to write some of these ideas down. What did you learn from this interview that you are excited about? How can you use this information moving forward? And then how can we as Passion Impact improve your experience? So if you have any lawyer jokes, Brian or Yahaira, this is a perfect time to offer them. I will offer one to start out so you have some time to think, Brian. One of my friends who actually sits on our board, Tyler, he says, why would I write a sentence in 5 words when I can write it in 12 and get paid more? So that's his wording. That's also a joke because he doesn't do that. But that is something that I've heard a lot of lawyers like, yeah, we could just kind of expand on that here and there. Do y'all have any jokes that you'd like to offer? There's so many lawyer jokes, right? Like that's like a quintessential like 5 lawyers walk into a bar, you know, that kind of.
Devin, if you know more, share with
Oh,
us.
I'm just gonna look over here. Danny says, I've learned that Legally Blonde is actually accurate. Kayla says, if I work very hard, I can make Legally Blonde a reality. Okay, Legally Blonde, come on, y'all. More to this interview than that. Keep going with those. Do y'all have jokes? Any good jokes? You find one? You looking for it on Google right now?
Let's Google.
All right. I learned something actually, Brian, from you, that even in those moments of hard ethical reasoning and kind of tussling with yourself around, should I represent this person or should I not? There is that quintessential, they are a human and they deserve these rights. And that it's core, like that is the most important thing. That is actually something that I struggled with when I was like, maybe I should become a lawyer. That actually was a really cool explanation of how to think through that. Danny also says, I've learned that there are many types of lawyers, and I've learned that court is public. So if you wanted to go, you could actually show up at any point. That's great. I
remembered a joke. Well, somebody in the room looked up a joke for me. So I broke a mirror and got 7 years of bad luck, but my lawyer thinks that he can get it down to 5. So.
Nice. Very good. Very good. Oh, Mary says, I learned that the typical stereotype of a lawyer isn't always true. Also, that if you do not have any work experience, commitment should be shown. I agree with Danny. I learned that court is public. Adriana says, wait, super good question. How many years of schooling internships did it take you to land your first professional real lawyer job? Might be too late. My bad. Any ideas total?
7.
7? Whew, 7 years.
Well, it's 4 years of undergrad, 3 years of law school, and then you have to take the bar exam, get licensed, wait a few months to actually be called an attorney.
Wow. Okay, Brian, for you, same or?
Yeah, I'd say 7 to 8 as well. That's a good.
That's like almost becoming a doctor and basically that same kind of path, right? Like, no.
I don't know what Yahaira thinks, but I think doctors are way more dedicated than lawyers. I put them in a whole separate category because they do residency as well. So
Oh,
not only do they have to do the 8 years of schooling, but then they have 4 years of residency. So that's like they do about 12 years before they're actually landing their first profession.
Okay, touche. Then yeah, so then Kayla said that we should all go watch, go to court and just see that
Oh my
with
gosh.
Danny and Mary. Okay, cool. Well, with that, want to just get your attention over here back to the screen on this next week, and every single week we got a bunch of stuff happening. So parent supports on Mondays from 1 to 2:30 help translate promotional materials for parents and guardians who don't speak English. So if you know Spanish, Cantonese, Russian, Vietnamese, we'd love to have you in helping with that one, specifically next Monday, because we're going to be rolling out the May informational interviews next week. We want all of it translated, so please come help. Article discussions are on Tuesdays from 12 to 1. This week was a debate. I heard that went super well.
That was funny.
And then on Wednesdays, just like today, we have workouts with Christina and Kayla, and you get sweaty and you stay fit in quarantine. Next Monday, because it's Mondays and Wednesdays that we have informational interviews. Next Monday, we're going to have Dr. Kanika Agrawal, who is a kind of a wizard of all trades, tech, business, and mechanics. So please come to that, sign up for that. On Thursdays, we have our communication team meeting. So if you want to join, we might have room for one more. And then on Fridays, our game days with Mary and Alan. So come play a slew of different games and have some fun, letting loose. If you want to sign up for our newsletter, it's there at the bottom, passionateimpact.org/subscribe. And if you want to sign up for any of these programs at the top, passionateimpact.org/teleprogramming. And without further ado, thank you so much for your time, Yahaira and Brian. It has been a fantastic time having you here and a pleasure. And if we can all unmute ourselves or have our warden unmute us, we'll give you a yippee for being around. So, yippee! Woo!
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
You guys are as scary as I thought you would be. Oh my gosh.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
This was a treat. All right, Brian and Yahaira, go ahead and stick around with me and Kayla. Everybody else, have a great night. It's been good seeing you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.